Blackmore's Night, Shadow of the Moon, which was the first Blackmore's Night album, which came out in 1997. Now, at the time, I used to go to a record fair in a town near where I lived, and I had a chap there who used to bring me things. This bloke used to keep things aside from me. And what he used to do, he used to bring them to the record fair and keep them under the counter and say, right, these are the things I've got this week that you might be interested in. Do you want any of them? And I'd say, well, yeah, I'll have them. And if I didn't want them, he'd go, okay, and then he'd stick them in the rack for everybody else to have a look at. That was the sort of setup that we got. He knew he was going to get some sales out of me. I very rarely didn't want anything that he'd got out because he knew what I wanted. So anyway, I'll turn up at this record fair and he gets this package and he puts this CD in this portable CD player, and it starts. And he's always been clever because he's not put it on track 1. He's put it on track 4, 5, 6, whatever it was. It's instrumental, and of course straight away, I don't claim to be a guitar expert or anything. I don't even play the thing, but I know the sound of the guitar players I listen to, and I'll be able to pick out Richie Blackmore any day. And after about 4 notes, I was like, Richie Blackmore? What is it? Anyway, I'll listen to this. What's the next track? And then there's just this woman starts singing. And I thought, well, what is it? What's he doing? He's just sort of like guesting on some folk album or something. And he went, no, I've got this through from my sources in Japan. And he passes me this Japanese CD with all the old Obi strip and all that on it and everything. And there's Richie Blackmore with like a loot over his shoulder and this woman, which obviously is Candice Knight, his then girlfriend, now sort of wife. And he says this is his new band. He's not Rainbow on the Head. He says, I've only got one of these. It's from just, I don't know when it's coming out over here. He says, but it's already due to be out in Japan. He said, so I got one off one of my suppliers. I thought you'd want one. Anyway, so yeah. So anyway, I took it home and I put it on and I couldn't believe it. It was like Richie Blackmore's turned into a folk musician. To me, at the time, almost overnight, because it wasn't expected at all. Whereas now, of course, if anybody was going to do anything like that, you'd hear about it 6 months before on the internet. Everybody would be talking about it, and then we go, what's it going to be like? But nobody was talking about this. Certainly not in the circles that I was moving anyway. Nobody knew anything about it. They were just wondering when the next Rainbow album was going to come out, because don't forget, in those days, people only made a record every 3 years. And so we weren't even really due it for another year. And even after this, which I think a lot of us still thought, well, he'll do Rainbow as well as this. He won't just do this. But I thought it was great. It was like I could sort of tell. Again, I'm not trying to put myself out as an expert, but you could just tell how much he was enjoying playing it from the sound of his fingers on the strings or whatever. I don't know how to describe it, but you just thought, well, you know what? This is what he wants to do, and he's Richie Blackmore playing a guitar. I'll sit listening to Richie Blackmore playing a guitar. I don't care whether he's playing rock music or whether he's playing folk music. It's good. Candice Knight's got a perfectly good voice. She might not be the most powerful voice in the world. You might be able to list plenty of people who may be technically better than her, but she's good, and Richie Blackmore wants to be in a band with her. So that's it. I don't see why people gave him such a hard time about it, really, because if that's what he wanted to do, let's take another one of the big 70s bands, Led Zeppelin. Jimmy Page. What's Jimmy Page done since Led Zeppelin? He made one solo album. Well, he did that film soundtrack, he did Death Wish thing. Then he did one solo album, which was good but patchy, you've got to say. I only got 2 or 3 different singers on it for a start off. Then he did The Firm. Well, he did The Firm before that solo album. No, yeah, I think he did. Anyway, The Firm with Paul Rodgers didn't quite work out, did it? Some of the songs were quite good. I went to the whole of the UK tour, and because they decided they weren't going to play any Led Zeppelin songs, they weren't going to play any Free songs, they weren't going to play any Bad Company songs, they struggled for material, really. They had to stretch out quite a few songs and do few others that they probably wouldn't have done. It's something that could have worked if it had been thought through a little bit better, but it didn't pan out. The two albums they made were okay, but they're not anywhere near the top of Paul Rodgers' catalogue in my mind. But again, I'm veering off the subject here. And then he did that, and then he did a couple of albums of Robert Plant again, didn't he? But he's done virtually nothing. Now, I'd rather Richie Blackmore play folk music than nothing. So, again, I don't get why people gave him such a hard time about it. I went to quite a few live shows, and they were good. They were entertaining. Yeah, people went dressed up as Henry VIII or whatever, or in their sort of like court jester's outfit. But it was fun. That's what it's supposed to be. Music is supposed to be fun. I saw Richie Blackmore having more fun on stage in Blackmore's night than I ever saw him have in latter days of sort of Deep Purple or Rainbow and stuff. He was actually enjoying himself while he was doing this, and it was good. And the albums were good. This album is brilliant. There's some great tracks. There's some great instrumentals on it. There's some great, nice songs on it. I'm not going to go through song by song, which is what I was initially going to do. I'm just going to say go and listen to it because it's good. If Richie Blackmore is, to me, the greatest rock guitarist in the world, to hear him playing something else different, to me, that's good, because I'm not going to turn around and say he'd be the greatest folk guitarist in the world. I probably would think he would be, but people who know more about folk music will be able to turn around and give me a whole list of acoustic guitar players who probably better at that type of guitar playing than Richie Blackmore is, and he will probably be the first one to admit that as well. But the point of the matter is, I don't think that I would have gone out and bought an album like this if it hadn't have had somebody like Richie Blackmore. And then because I like that, that's then allowed me to get into other sort of folky stuff that maybe I wouldn't have got into before. This sort of gave me a bit more of an appreciation of straight up folk music, if you like, in the same way that listening to John Lord's classical solo albums allowed me a greater understanding, if you like, of listening to classical music, whereas to me before, listening to classical music was a bit boring. But now I'm listening out for things when I do listen to classical music now, because I'm sort of thinking about bits that have been used, if you like, ideas or ways things have gone into sort of the structure of some rock songs, I think. So to me, in many ways, was a doorway into that more folky type stuff. And now I'll quite happily go along to a folk club and listen to people playing folk music, old folk music and new folk music as well. Whereas before this, I probably might have sort of dismissed it as, nah, that's not my thing. It's worthwhile. It's worthwhile music. A good musician is always a good musician, no matter what he's playing. And this is good stuff. So anybody who's going to say to me, oh, I'm the biggest Richie Blackmore fan in the world, but I can't stand that Blackmore's Night rubbish, well, in that case, I don't think you are the greatest Richie Blackmore fan in the world, because you would be able to appreciate what he's doing and why he's doing it and why he wants to do it. And yeah, you don't have to like it. You don't have to pretend that you think it's brilliant, but what you have to say is, it's not really my cup of tea, it's not my style, I don't really like listening to it. But don't say it's rubbish, because it isn't. It's good. He can play the guitar, she can sing, the whole setup, yeah, alright, some people think it looks a little bit like a Christmas nativity play stuff where they have all the stage setup and stuff, but all that's to the thing, it's the entertainment value, isn't it? People are going to see something to get entertained. Well, I've been to a number of Blackmore's night gigs with varying people, and some of the people that I saw at a Blackmore's night gig, I could never see them at a Deep Purple gig, you could never see them at a Rainbow gig. It's you could almost sort of say Richie Blackmore could now say, well, do you know what, I don't need all that rock adoration type stuff being there, because I've now got my own over here. I'm now this folk set type people. I would guess that the probably 50% of the people at least who go to see a Blackmore's Night gig don't possess a Rainbow or a Deep Purple album, and probably never would want to. It's different. It's different music, but it's still the same man playing the guitar. It's still the same, so you can appreciate it. Like a painter paints one thing and then another day he decides to go off and paint an entirely different subject, and it's a subject that you don't necessarily like. You don't just suddenly decide that person's become a bad painter because you don't like that one particular picture. You just say, well, I can see it's a good painting, but it's not my style. I'm not going to hang it on my wall. So if you're a big fan of Deep Purple and you don't like Blackmore's Night, that's fine. But you don't need to keep telling everybody, and you don't need to keep rubbishing it, because that's no good to anybody, and it's pointless. It doesn't need to be rubbish because it's good. There are people out there, I'll tell you there are people out there that will listen to Blackmore's Night and say it's 10 times better than Deep Purple in their mind. I'm not saying that, of course I'm not saying that. But what I'm saying is I can appreciate it. I don't sit here at night and think, what shall I play tonight? Shall I play Deep Purple in rock, or shall I play Under a Violet Moon? If I'm in a Deep Purple in rock mood, I'll play Deep Purple in rock. People probably tell me I'm in a Deep Purple in rock mood every day, but you know what I mean. I have to be in the right mood to want to listen to Blackmore's Night, but when I do want to listen to it, it's great. When the last album came out, was it last year or the year before, and I put it on, it's almost like, I've heard this before, because they do, I'm not going to say they all sound the same, but they've got the same sort of feel about them most of the time. But when I'd finished listening to it, it didn't make me then think, I've got to go and play Burn now, because I need to hear Richie Blackmore play rock guitar. What it made me do was put another Blackmore's Night album on, because I was now in that sort of a mood. And obviously, I'd admit it. After you've heard 2 or 3 of them on a trot, you probably don't want to hear the 4th one. So that's fine. But anyway, this has turned into everything that it wasn't supposed to be, because it was supposed to be talking about this album, which has just been repackaged and re-put out again as a 25-year remaster. If you haven't got it, whether you got it in England later on, or whether you got one from Japan like me, get it, or at least listen to it, and don't just dismiss it as funky nonsense and Richie Blackmore dressed up like an urban, because it's not that at all. It's good, and it's worth listening to, and I'm glad I've got it.